What's up, everyone, and welcome back to Cinematic Reviews. I, of course, am your host, Chris, and this is a show about all things movie and TV. I took a little break from podcasting, and for good reason, and that is to bring this show to YouTube finally. And we're here. It's been a goal ever since I started this podcast back in 2022 to get this show on YouTube, and here we are. You can hit that subscribe button and follow me every week on YouTube at The Cinematic Reviews. You can also listen to the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and any of your other favorite podcast networks. And what better way to kick this off with another Marvel season, taking it back to the first season that I did on this show. This season will consist of 4 episodes. This first episode today will be a review on Captain America: A Brave New World, which is in theaters right now and then eventually hitting Disney Plus. So let's kick this off with some news and reactions. So before we jump into today's featured film, I wanted to go over my most anticipated MCU project of this year, along with some other news that we've been hearing around the whole Disney Marvel sphere of media today. But first, my most anticipated project this year is the Fantastic Four First Steps movie, which will be coming out this summer. This will be the 3rd iteration of Fantastic Four. It's been a wild ride for Fantastic Four fans like myself. I've been waiting for the MCU to include the Marvel's first family for a long time. I remember when that first Fantastic Four film came out in 2005. It was actually a really good film. We'll be covering that movie along with the sequel, Rise of the Silver Surfer, later on this year in a Fantastic Four season to kick off the MCU's Fantastic Four movie. But I really liked it. You know, that was back when Chris Evans was Human Torch, Jessica Alba was Sue Storm, Michael Childress was The Thing. But then we got that 2015 version of Fantastic Four, which set the kind of the franchise back a little bit with, you know, Michael B. Jordan as the Human Torch, Kate Mara as Sue Storm, Miles Teller as Reed Richards, which was an okay film. It wasn't great story-wise, but I see that they were trying to change it up a little bit as far as the franchise. But now we're getting Disney's take on it after seeing John Krasinski and Doctor Strange kind of do his take on Reed Richards, which fans like myself have been wanting him to be Reed Richards for a long time. But now we're getting their actual main timeline, it seems, as their Fantastic Four movie, which will have Pedro Pascal as Reed Richards, Vanessa Kirby as Sue Storm, Joseph Quinn from Stranger Things as Human Torch, and then The Thing will be, what was his name? Cousin from The Bear, if you've seen that show. Ebon Moss, he will be playing The Thing. The trailer has been out now, and you can check that out on all the social media pages for the show. It looks fantastic. The Thing looks great. The action looks great. I love the shots of Joseph Quinn flying around as a Human Torch. And Pedro and Vanessa look like they have great chemistry together, which is really important for, you know, Reed and Sue, who eventually become married and have kids of their own. So it's good to have chemistry. And it seems like they do. Looking at interviews and the trailers, Pedro and Vanessa seem to be really great together, which is a good start. No word yet on, you know, if Robert Downey's Doom is going to show up. But we will be getting Galactus and Silver Surfer. So that's exciting. So that's my most anticipated film for MCU this year is Fantastic Four. A close second is actually Daredevil Born Again, which I'll be doing an episode once that show airs all of its episodes on Disney Plus. The first 2 episodes are out now, with the 3rd episode coming out on Tuesday of this week. I love that show. I mean, in the first 10 minutes of that show was fantastic with the brutal, the heartbreak at the beginning of it. But I'm super excited for that show. But the Fantastic Four First Steps is probably my favorite MCU project of this year. So yeah, we're going to be covering that. We're going to be actually doing a Fantastic Four season building up to that movie. So we'll be doing the 2005 Fantastic Four, the Rise of the Silver Surfer, and then the 2015 Fantastic Four film. And then I'll finally release my review of First Steps when that premieres in theaters. So a lot of Marvel this year on my show, as well as Disney. But speaking of that, so it turns out Marvel is actually going to hit a pause on the Disney Plus shows. Some of these projects include like Nova, which they've been talking about for years, as well as the Strange Academy, which I think is a little newer of a concept, and I'm not exactly sure what that all entailed. But they're going to be cutting back on the Disney Plus shows, which I think fans have really been vocal about it the last couple years, with not just the amount of shows, but like the quality of the shows. And even Star Wars is kind of in that realm too, where they're just pumping out all these mediocre shows and not really up at the level like the Mandalorian was. And then on Marvel side, WandaVision was a huge hit, Loki was a huge hit, but then you have all these other ones in between. So Marvel's actually trying to take a step back, it looks like, and kind of focus on quality instead of quantity, and then maybe pumping out more movies, which I've been a fan of. Give me a 2.5 hour movie versus a mediocre 8 episode or 6 episode show on Disney Plus that you got to pay a subscription for every month. But good. It sounds like Marvel's trying to get back on track, and it looks like Star Wars is doing the same thing with Andor coming out, which will be also on this show. I'll cover my review of that show once all those episodes are in April. Another bit of piece of news, which I was very shocked of, was it sounds like Jonathan Majors may be coming back as Kang the Conqueror to kind of wrap up his storyline and then maybe shuffle into Robert Downey Jr.'s version of Doctor Doom, which is supposed to be huge character in the upcoming Avengers films and possibly in post-credit scene in Fantastic Four, maybe even showing up in like Spider-Man or some of these other projects. But it sounds like Jonathan Majors is coming back. If you've been following his kind of arc through the MCU and his kind of personal life, it looks like he's kind of hit rock bottom. But I think Marvel is really eager to kind of wrap up the Kang story to kind of not leave fans hanging, which I appreciate. Um, I really like Jonathan Majors as Kang. I was super excited for him when he came out in Ant-Man Quantumanium. But it sounds like we're going to get a little bit more of Jonathan Majors just to kind of wrap up his story, which is really, really awesome. So that's kind of the big pieces of news that I found so far in Marvel, along with my most anticipated film of the year, Fantastic Four. So let's head over to our feature film of today's episode. So, like I said, our feature film today is Captain America: A Brave New World, which is the newest addition, I guess you could say, to the Captain America sub franchise of the MCU. We get Anthony Mackie's take on his first kind of Captain America adventure led movie, aside from the Falcon and Winter Soldier, which he is still kind of the Falcon in that show. He doesn't really become, quote unquote Captain America until like the final couple episodes of that show. So this is kind of like his big announcement project as Captain America, taking over the throne from Chris Evans, Steve Rogers. So we have Sam Wilson, who is still kind of battling, what kind of Captain America he wants to be, which brings up a huge kind of argument that I've been seeing online, which is, does Anthony Mackie have what it takes to kind of not really take over the mantle from Chris Evans, but kind of like shuffle in his own version of the character? And I've been seeing a lot of, kind of ups and downs, positives, negatives of his take on Captain America. I think I like his version a lot more than I thought I did going into this movie. Going into this movie, I was kind of leery on like, okay, he was really cool as the Falcon, but watching the Falcon and Winter Soldier and kind of seeing his journey through that show, I wasn't really sold on Anthony Mackie becoming Captain America. Not just Mackie, but like Sam Wilson, the character. Even though I think Sam Wilson as the Falcon, and like the Winter Soldier and Civil War and all the Avenger movies that we had with him, he's really good. I really love Mackie, Sam Wilson slash the Falcon character. Whereas I was a little more lukewarm on, Sam Wilson slash Captain America, the character. But now after watching this movie, I kind of dig Mackie as Cap. I like that he's trying to bring his own take into this character. A lot of people are like, oh, he'll never be Steve Rogers. I mean, Harrison Ford even says, you're not Steve Rogers. And Anthony Mackie's like, yeah, I know that. I'm not. I'm Sam Wilson. So kind of just accept me for who I am, which I totally agree with him. A lot of the criticisms of him is like, oh, he'll never be as good as Chris Evans. Well, yeah, because it's not the same character. It's he's doing his best to kind of evolve the Sam Wilson character into where he can be a Captain America that everybody can get behind. And I'm gonna say I'm one of those people that wants to get behind him. He's I really love Anthony Mackie as an actor. I love Sam Wilson as a character. So I was super excited walking out of this film of like, yeah, I hope we get more Mackie as Cap because I really do like him. He was really good in this film, along with Harrison Ford. I think Harrison Ford was kind of the shining star in this movie, not just because of the huge name that is Harrison Ford, but he's actually really good in it. Um, I never would have guessed that he would be joining the MCU. He's probably the last actor that I would probably guess that would join the MCU. But it's only a matter of time before, actors like Matthew McConaughey, who's been approached, or Keanu Reeves, who's been wanting to get in the MCU for a while. But with Harrison Ford taking over, Thunderbolt Ross, I think it was really a good choice. He killed it. He brought in a lot of energy. Sounds like he had a lot of fun on the project, from what I've been reading and seeing in the interviews that he has done to kind of promote the movie. Um, so, if you don't know, Harrison Ford took over as General Ross, now President Ross, after the unfortunate passing of William Hurt, who played Ross in the Hulk movie, Civil War, uh, and I think he popped up in the Avengers a couple of times. So, but Harrison Ford taking over as Ross. I mean, I love, no disrespect to William Hurt and everything he has done as an actor and as part of the MCU. He was really really awesome as Ross. I think I like Harrison Ford's take on Ross a little bit better. I know it's hard to compare it because the two actors bring their own take to the character. But I think I like Harrison Ford's version of Ross just a little bit more than William Hurt's, um, which I never would have guessed either going into this film. I love Harrison Ford. I think he's a great actor, but I never would have guessed I would have liked his take because I really did like William Hurt's take. So it's saying a lot that Harrison Ford is not my favorite version of Ross. Uh, so he's great. He ends up bringing in the Red Hulk to the MCU, which was awesome. Which makes this movie kind of like a. I think they advertised this as like a sequel to the Incredible Hulk as well, because we get the leader again, who is played by what was his name? Tim Blake Nelson, who was in the Incredible Hulk movie back in 2008. He is what they call the leader in the comics. He is just Dr. Stearns in this one. So yeah, this was kind of like a soft sequel, I guess you could say, to the Incredible Hulk movie, which is a really good movie. I really liked that film, and for this to be like a sequel to that after all these years is really cool. I was not expecting that when they announced this movie. I don't think anybody really did, predict that this would be like a sequel to the Incredible Hulk. It's kind of unfortunate that we didn't get, Mark Ruffalo in here, but it seems like they're kind of phasing Ruffalo out a little bit. But we did get some Hulk action with Harrison Ford, and I think he did a fantastic job. Like the effects of the Red Hulk coming out of Harrison was a really good choice. The burning effect on his arms and his entire body. It looked very, very painful. And Harrison Ford projected that pain really, really well. To where, when Bruce Banner turns into the Hulk, it looks painful, but not really because his skin kind of just turns green. This was a really cool effect where like you see Harrison Ford's skin like burn off and turns into the Red Hulk, which I think was a really good element of this movie and kind of helps, the Red Hulk character be more than just an angry monster. We also get Liv Tyler, who plays Betty in the Incredible Hulk movie. She pops up at the very end. They mentioned her a couple times throughout the film, and then we finally get her at the very end. We get some on-screen time with her and Harrison Ford, and I hope she gets to. I hope she gets to come back. Maybe even interact with Mark Ruffalo's Hulk a little bit, which would be awesome. Who else did we get in here? The new Falcon in this movie was what was it? Joaquin, I think is what his name was. He was really good. Who played him? Oh yeah, Joaquin Torres, Danny Ramirez. I really like him as the Falcon. Um, at times he could be a bit much. I think he was trying to go for his best Deadpool. cracking jokes every other line. He saw Deadpool Wolverine, I'm sure, and is like, hold my beer. I'm going to make this a comedy. Uh, there was a couple jokes that he cracked that was really good, but for the most part, I think he was a bit annoying. The comedy could have been scaled back a bit. I really liked him as the Falcon, especially in the Winter Soldier show. He kind of was introduced as the, passing on the mantle as the Falcon. And in the action sequences as the Falcon, he's really good. He holds the wings very well. But I think the comedy was a bit much, at the, coming off of Deadpool and Wolverine, where that just annihilated everyone's guts comedy wise. I think he was trying to do his best take on that. But this isn't really the movie that we needed all that comedy. Captain America has always been more of a serious, darker films. Whereas Deadpool, that was just all funny and jokes. And they probably could have scaled back more, especially with this character on the comedy. But I get it. You're trying to create this family fun environment. But from what I remember and what I experienced from the Captain America movies, they were more serious than comedic. Steve Rogers was, you know, uh, crack a few jokes here and there, or Bucky would say a few jokes without even knowing they were jokes. But I think Ramirez was just a little bit too much. But the action sequences were awesome. You get Mackie flying around as Cap, you get him flying around as the Falcon. I think the action sequences are really good, and he held his own in those action sequences. But I think the comedy could have been scaled back a bit. We get kind of a side villain in here called Sidewinder, who I'm not too familiar with. I remember reading mentions of him in the comics, and on researching different characters that they could bring to the MCU online. Sidewinder was a character that's always been kind of hinted at coming into the MCU eventually. He was played by Giancarlo Esposito, who I absolutely love. Gus from uh, Breaking Bad. He's in The Mandalorian as Moff Gideon. So he's no stranger to the Disney world. And it was only a matter of time before he jumped over to Marvel from Star Wars. And I think he's really cool as Sidewinder. He's kind of like a uh, big old terrorist, I guess you could call him. Uh, he was more or less just kind of wreaking havoc around the world, kind of setting up the leader. But he was more of just a side villain, kind of like what's his name? Crossbones was in the other movies. This was kind of like the Crossbones of Mackey's universe with Sidewinder, who I think Giancarlo was it awesome. The action sequence with him and Mackie fighting each other, around the cars was really cool. It was really cool to see Giancarlo get into the MCU finally. We get Bradley again. Isaiah Bradley, who we met in the Falcon and Winter Soldier show as the very first Cap back in the World War II days, the Black Cap of America, I guess some people call him. He was really good. I really loved seeing him. He was a big part of the first part of the film, and then they kind of sidelined him a bit, and then he comes back later. But he was really cool in all the scenes that he was, him getting brainwashed and then kicking the shit out of all those Secret Service agents trying to get to Harrison Ford. He was really cool. And then the last character I wanted to bring up was the Black Widow, who they seem to be popping up more and more. Foggy really likes to expand this universe, but it seems like what are we on our fourth Black Widow we've met since the Black Widow movie. What was her name? Ruth. She was not to be too cruel, but she was a very small Black Widow in stature. But she was pretty awesome. She was pretty straight and narrow. Doesn't mess with anybody. And it's cool we're getting more Black Widows. Hopefully they kind of cool it a little bit, because it's you start putting Black Widows into every project, everyone's just be like rolling their eyes. But she could be a cool addition later on, just like Florence Pugh's Yelena has become a fan favorite. But maybe we can cool a little bit on the Black Widows, even though I really like the Black Widow movie. It's a cool organization to dive into, but it's all about universe connecting. But I think she was all right. And then, like I mentioned, Professor Stern or Dr. Stearns as a leader who was the scientist who experimented on Edward Norton's Hulk in the Incredible Hulk movie. He was teased, months ago before the trailer even dropped that he was going to be coming back as the leader, who is a big bad in the comics. They even call him the leader. I don't think they really call him the leader in here. They just kind of call him Stearns. But he was cool. It was nice to see him come back. Uh, the makeup on him was kind of wild. Normally in the comics, like he has a huge head in the comics, so their choice to not do that was probably for the best. It would have been kind of wacky if we see Tim Blake Nelson just walking around with this big ass head. So they kind of like uh, discolored his skin and kind of did some stuff with his made his brain kind of pop out a little bit, but not as egregious as the comics because that would have just been wacky and unnecessary. But he was really cool. He didn't show up until probably like probably to the third act of the film, but it was really cool. Some other things I wanted to talk about. So it was kind of a big reveal for me. And it wasn't really hinted at in the trailers, which I think they did a fantastic job. But we finally get to introduction of adamantium in the MCU, which is freaking wild. Kevin Feige has been talking about, bringing in the X-Men, and it sounds like the next saga of projects in the MCU is going to be an X-Men saga or a mutant saga, however he calls it. So getting the hint of adamantium is really cool. We get the kind of, how do I say it? The kind of question, the question answered on that big celestial in the middle of the Indian Ocean after the Eternals film. Well, it turns out the reason why that thing's been sitting there is because there's this big policy battle between all these nations on who actually gets to excavate it. And it turns out that thing is made of adamantium, which is really exciting for us to finally get, Wolverine into the MCU aside from Hugh Jackman. Maybe Foggy uses Hugh Jackman as the actor again. Maybe we get a younger guy in there. I'm on the side of let's kind of let Hugh Jackman rest a little bit and introduce a younger actor that we can use for 10 15 years as Wolverine, kind of like they did with Tom Holland, where they got a younger kid to play Spider-Man for the next 10 years. I think that's the best way to do it. Or maybe they decide to go the X23 route where they get Kathleen Keen to come in and be Wolverine in this universe. There's a lot of things they can do with Wolverine. I'm on the side of let's get a younger actor in there and then let him or her kind of be that character for 10, 15 years and kind of let Hugh Jackman rest. I know the joke in Deadpool and Wolverine was till he's 90, which I wouldn't be surprised if Foggy is just like, hey, Hugh, can you be the MCU Wolverine again? I think we need something fresh for the X-Men, recast everybody, including Wolverine. That's just my take. But adamantium finally being introduced into the MCU is really huge, really exciting, and I'm all for it. Couple of questions that I wanted to bring up while watching this movie and kind of digesting it a little bit. One big question, and I've been asking myself this ever since, the Falcon and Winter Soldier show came out. Does Sam's Captain America need the Super Soldier Serum? It's brought up a lot in the show. It was brought up a few times in this film. Me personally, I think he needs the serum. This whole Sam Wilson trying to be a different Cap by not taking a serum is not going to cut it. Doctor Doom's coming. Secret Wars is coming. Captain America needs to have the serum in order to survive. I think I understand his argument on not wanting the serum. He wants to show the world that you don't need superpowers to be a hero. Even Captain America doesn't need superpowers. He just needs to have a good heart and make the right decisions. I think he needs the serum. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's just my argument. Like, he needs the serum in order to survive what is coming. Like, realistically, he wouldn't have survived the Red Hulk fight like he did in the movie. I get it. He's got the wings that are made from vibranium, and he's tactical. He's very smart with his tactics, like fighting wise. I just think it's been long enough to where it's getting to a point where he needs the serum in order to survive all these battles that he's going to endure. Like Secret Wars, if you're familiar with any parts of that comic book, that is a huge multiverse war that ends in death. And I think in order to kind of help Sam Wilson survive that, he needs the serum. He just needs it. I understand the argument that they're trying to do, and that Captain America isn't just superpowers. You know, he's a good person, and that it's just realistically he needs the serum in order to survive a lot of these battles. It's just not really realistic that he's. And I know arguing realistic with comic books is insane, but what I'm trying to get across is just he needs the serum. That's just Captain America. Captain America is super strong. He's super agile. It's just who that character is. He needs the serum in order to be Captain America, honestly. But that's just my take. And then the other one was who would win in a fight, Red Hulk or Banner's Hulk? I think Bruce Banner's Hulk would win, solely based on the fact that he just gets bigger and angrier as he fights. You know, I think Bruce Banner has more control over his self in order to, you know, take on Red Hulk. And I think honestly, I think the Green Hulk is just stronger. Uh, but that's like saying, you know, who's stronger, the Hulk or the Thor? You know, really super powered beings. I'm on the side of Bruce Banner would beat up the Red Hulk, but maybe I could be wrong. Maybe Ross is stronger and the movie just didn't show it. But I'm on the Bruce Banner Hulk. I'm gonna post these two questions on all the social media pages for the show, so feel free to go and vote on those when I post those online. And then to kind of wrap up this discussion on today's feature film, kind of want to look to the future. You know, we have a lot of projects coming out, movies, shows, even some of the video games are starting to tie into the MCU as a whole. So, where does this leave Cap and the rest of the MCU after this show? Well, like I mentioned before, we got Daredevil Born Again going on right now on Disney Plus. There's been rumors that Daredevil could join the Avengers. I know there's a big legal debate on whether Spider-Man can join Daredevil, which is like my dream team up. Next to Wolverine and the Hulk, getting a movie on them. I would love to see Spider-Man join Daredevil, but I know with the whole Sony contract with Tom Holland, that's probably more of a wish list than it is an actual reality. But I would love to see that. Thunderbolts is coming in May. That seems to be like the MCU's take on the Suicide Squad, which is I'm actually kind of excited for it. It's a bunch of characters that I never really cared about aside from Bucky and Elena. But we're getting Red Guardian back. We're getting Ghost, Taskmaster, Master. But it looks like a lot of fun, and that's what I want to do. I want to have fun at the movies, especially with Marvel movies. So it looks like fun. I mentioned at the top of the episode, Fantastic Four is coming out this summer. Huge movie. This will probably tie into Avengers Doomsday just because of the Fantastic Four connection with Doctor Doom. We're probably going to get a big post-credit scene after that movie with Robert Downey Jr.'s Doom. That's another team up I've been wanting to see in the MCU is Spider-Man and the Fantastic Four. I mean, there's like multiple comic book runs where Spider-Man is actually a Fantastic Four after Johnny dies, which would be awesome to do in the MCU. But Tom Holland's getting older; he's kind of phasing out as Spider-Man. We probably won't get a team up until the Avengers, but you never know. Like I keep mentioning, we have the Avengers movie, Doomsday, and Secret Wars, which I am super excited about, especially Secret Wars. It's one of my favorite comic book runs that Marvel's ever done next to Civil War. Those that don't know much about Secret Wars, it's a giant multiverse battle with like 100 different Marvel characters fighting each other. Good versus bad. Looks like Doomsday is going to lead into Secret Wars, where Doctor Doom is kind of maybe trying to control the multiverse. I'm not exactly sure what they're going to do. That's just my guess with them naming the first Avengers film Doomsday. But I'm excited to see Robert Downey's take on Doctor Doom. I was a little skeptical when they announced it. after 10 plus years of him being Iron Man. Uh, but I'm willing to give it a try. I love Robert Downey. I think he's a fantastic actor. No matter what character he's playing, he's gonna give it 110%. And I'm excited to see what he does with Doctor Doom. We haven't really seen him play a villain. Probably the closest we've got to see him as a villain is maybe in Oppenheimer. So this is gonna be a really cool thing for Robert Downey to do, and for us fans to kind of see him channel his inner evil and see what he can do with the character. And then lastly, we get a lot of talk about the fourth Tom Holland Spider-Man movie. Uh, Sounds like he's going to have another trilogy, and then he's probably going to wrap it up as Spider-Man. He's been talking about Miles Morales taking over, which would be a really awesome way to do it. But the fourth movie sounds like it's up in the air. We could get Kingpin in there. We could get Doctor Doom in there. Daredevil could show up. But Spider-Man, if you already listened to me talk about it on the show, he's not just my favorite Marvel character. He's my favorite superhero of all time. And I'm super excited for some more Tom Holland. He's my favorite Spider-Man, and I just want more of him. I wish he could be in everything. But realistically, he can't because of the Sony contract and his schedule. But I'm all for whatever the fourth Spider-Man movie is going to be. I really hope Kingpin shows up. I hope Daredevil shows up in it. But yeah, the future of Marvel is looking pretty good. We got the X-Men coming. We got some more Avengers movies coming out. We're kind of phasing out the old characters, replacing them with some of the younger people, like Haley Steinfeld's Kate Bishop's probably going to come back, which is exciting. Hopefully we kind of get some kind of ending to Jeremy Renner's Hawkeye with her taking on. But yeah, the Marvel's looking really fun. And I'm super excited for Marvel, which I haven't really been able to say, the last couple of years. It's been up and down for Marvel as long as Star Wars, but this movie, Captain America and Brave New World, has kind of rekindled my excitement for Marvel. And with the projects coming out, like I'm loving Daredevil right now. I'm actually rewatching the Netflix show. Yeah, it's a fun time to be a Marvel fan. So to wrap up today's episode, we're going to do what we always do. We're going to go through the rankings of the MCU. So let me pull up my MCU list here. It's been a while since we have talked about this one. All right, so number 1, we've got Deadpool and Wolverine. 2, Spider-Man No Way Home. 3, Avengers Infinity War. 4, Avengers Endgame. 5, Spider-Man Homecoming. 6, Captain America The Winter Soldier. 7, Captain America Civil War. 8, Spider-Man Far From Home. 9, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. 10, Guardians of the Galaxy. 11, Thor Ragnarok. 12, Hawkeye. 13, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. 14, Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. 15, Ant-Man and the Wasp. 6, Ant-Man. 17, WandaVision. 18, Black Panther. 19, Iron Man. 20, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. 21, The Avengers. 22, The Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special. 23, Werewolf by Night. 24, Thor, Love and Thunder. 25, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. 26, Loki, Season 1. And then 27, Loki, Season 2. 28, Doctor Strange. 29, Avengers Age of Ultron. 30, Black Panther. 31, Iron Man 3. 32, Iron Man 2. 33, Captain America, The First Avenger. 34 is where I'm going to put Brave New World, and I will talk about that in a second. 35, She-Hulk, Attorney at Law. 36, Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. 37, Moon Knight. 38, Miss Marvel. 39, The Falcon and Winter Soldier. 40, The Incredible Hulk. 41, Thor, The Dark World. 42, Captain Marvel. 43, Thor. 44, Echo. 45, Secret Invasion. 46, The Marvels. 47, The Eternals. Holy crap. I can make an episode just on naming all these projects. So, like I said, 34 is where I'm going to put Captain America Brave New World. This was really tough because, like I said, I did like the movie. When you look at this list, there's just so many other good projects in here. Like The First Avenger, a lot of people don't care for it. I really like it. It was the first phase movie. I think it was like number, what was it, 3 or 4 out of all these movies. And that's even at 33. Like, that shows you all these great projects that we've had so far. Um, but just because I have it listed 34 out of like 47 doesn't mean it's a bad movie. It's just the way this list is coming out is just there's a lot of great projects. Like, even looking at my top 10, like, those films are never going to get beat. Deadpool and Wolverine was such an anomaly. Like, I wasn't even expecting that to be in my top 5. Um, but it's number one. It's my favorite Marvel movie. Out of all these, Spider-Man: No Way Home was sitting at that list for a long time, and then Deadpool and Wolverine kicked it, which is crazy because Spider-Man is my favorite character. You would think Spider-Man: No Way Home would be on my number one list, but it's not. It got beat by Deadpool and Wolverine. So just because I put it at 34 does not mean I didn't like the movie. I actually enjoyed it. Like I keep saying to this podcast, I really enjoyed Brave New World. It's just the way this list is coming out, it's just tough to beat. It's going to be tough to beat the crack 10, the top 15, top 20. And there's just so many projects. It's just tough. But you can check out this list. I'll post it on all the social media pages as far as that goes. You can also follow along through this Marvel season as I give 3 more episodes, and then we'll return back to this list for Daredevil Born Again, and Fantastic for the First Steps, Thunderbolts. Like, there's a lot of projects that can get added to this list. I'm really curious to see where Daredevil pops up on this list, as well as the Fantastic Four. Like I said, those are my 2 most anticipated projects coming from Marvel this year. I wonder if either of those are going to break the top 10. It's going to be tough because this is like the holy grail of Marvel in these top 10 right now. But I'm super excited. So, yep, check out this list when I post it on all social media pages. Yeah, that's it for today's show. Look forward to putting this podcast on YouTube. This is the first episode, like I said at the top. Check me out every week. I'll try to announce ahead of time before these episodes drop so you can tune in on them. This season is going to include 4 Marvel movies. This is the first one. The next episode I'll post is on the Hulk. That'll be the Eric Bana Hulk. So we're going to go way back to, like, I think that one came out in like 2003. So we're going to go really back into the dark ages of Marvel. But I'm excited to watch that movie after all these years. And then I'm going to go even darker with Ben Affleck's Daredevil, leading into Daredevil Born Again. So it's going to be a fun season. And then the next Marvel season we'll do is the Fantastic Four one, probably this summer, leading up to the new movie. So check out the podcasts on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Music, along with many other podcast services out there. Subscribe to the show on YouTube. The Cinematic Reviews is where you can find it. And then follow all the social media pages on X, Facebook, Instagram, all those. So see you guys next time.